Thank you. I'm recording this meeting. Thank you, Sabrina, for reminding me. Um, Welcome everyone to the April community meeting for the Highland Park Community Council. As I was just saying to someone, this is our last virtual meeting of the year, not our last meeting, but from now on, we're going to be doing this in person starting in May at the Parklet, which I'll tell you more about in a second. So, for anyone who is going to be in the neighborhood on May 21st at 7, come meet us at the Parklet. So the agenda for tonight is just a few rounds of updates from HPCC. I want to tell you all about our spring and summer events. I want to give you a very short update on Bryant Street in the Parklet. And then I want to send you a couple of pieces of information about volunteer opportunities with HPCC. We're always looking for new volunteers. And then we have a quick update from some of the folks working in the parks world at HPCC, and then I'm going to turn it over to, oh, she just joined, Officer Selander, and she's going to give us a quick safety update. And then we will hear from Brad Groff, who is going to give us an updated version or updated look, I should say, at the changes coming to 5904 Bryant Street, um, currently and maybe soon to be not known as the Casa Brazil building. Um, and then we will hear from Rebecca Zito as our last presenter tonight to talk to us about the project around the covered reservoir. So that hopefully is a good enough agenda for the hour. If we are efficient, we can get through it and we'll still have time for, yes, Howard, the E2 building, for people who are longer term residents than I in Highland Park. If we can get through the whole thing fairly efficiently, then we'll have some room at the end to talk any concerns that you guys have. Uh, Tori from the Rangers is here, so I will put you on the spot a little bit, Tori, at the end of this first section to tell us a little bit about the Easter egg hunt and how that went. But I'll cue you when it's time for that. Okay, so I'll get us started with just events. So the first big event for us is our second annual wine tasting event. We are officially sold out for that event. So for anyone who's interested in it next year, please come next year. But we have a really, really great lineup tomorrow night, and it'll be hopefully, clear skies, warm enough to be on the patio of the Highland House Tower penthouse. Um, Easily one of the weirdest buildings in Pittsburgh because it's a 9 or 12 story building in the middle of Highland Park. But we're gonna have a great time there. We'll have wine that has been curated by our very own board member Jack Bryce. Thank you, Jack. And we'll have food from Sprezzatura, and we'll hear all about the great things that we've been doing on a broader scale. And then we'll, ask for your money. So anyone's coming, please make sure you have your ticket. You're registered. We'll be checking you guys in at the beginning. Kicks off at 5:30. Um, After that, we have an Earth Day party. This is mostly for families at the Super Playground at 10 a.m. on the 25th of April. And then, very exciting for the neighborhood, we have our annual marathon party. So the night before, or the day before, I should say, the marathon party, we have a noise making crafting activity happening at the parklet from 2 to 4. And then you bring your noisemakers to the marathon party that's happening on Bryant Street at 8:30 to noon-ish on May 3rd. So the folks who are doing the marathon, I've heard, are very busy because they're also in charge of the draft. So they'll have the draft and then the marathon the next week. So hopefully everything goes off without a hitch. Importantly for us, on the 16th of May, we have a parklet cleanup at 9 a.m. So if you're interested in just getting your hands dirty and sprucing up the parklet, Kelly Vitti here will be leading that for us. And then our first in-person meeting at the Parklet, which will be newly spruced up, will be on the 21st at 7 p.m. And then the big sort of summer event for us is on June 14th this year, the yard sale and the Bryant Street Festival. For anyone who has not signed up yet for the yard sale and is interested, I'm going to put in a link really quickly to register for the yard sale. This is, of course, not to register to attend the yard sale, just register to uh, put your house on the map to sell something at the yard sale. So this year, one of the changes that we're making, primarily because we're a nonprofit, but we don't love losing a ton of money, is we are not going to be providing people with table rentals this year. Um, so bring your own table. Just as an FYI, every year we've been trying to have table rentals for people, but it's a big cost for us. And then we'll probably change up how we have the music stage this year, so it's a little more cost friendly too. Uh, David just put a question in the chat. If it rains for the meeting, for the Parklet meeting, yes, thank you, Sabrina. The table situation is for people selling on Bryant Street. If it rains for the meeting at the Parklet, um, I haven't even thought about it in this city. What a terrible foresight. But what I'll probably do is I will send around an email to everyone and blast it out on our website and socials for a sort of backup virtual option. But that option will only be available if everyone is attending virtually, if it's raining. Thank you, David. That's a good thing to think about. Okay, so yard sale festival sales start at 9 and at 3. We are still finalizing the plans for the festival, so keep an eye out for that. And then on June 18th is HPCC's annual business meeting. So you'll hear a lot from us over the next couple months about just if you're interested in joining the HPCC board, we're always looking for new board members. That June meeting on June 18th is when we actually knight you as board, vote you in as a board member. So right now we're looking for at least two board members to join. So yeah, if you're interested, we have a lot of volunteer opportunities, but being a board member is sort of like the highest touch engagement with us. All right, I'll pause really quickly for any questions on events. Awesome. Everyone should be getting a spring mailer if you haven't already, like in the next couple of days. And there will be a calendar of events on the back of that. And it'll also be up on our website. It is as a post, but we'll find a more permanent place for it. So it's a more prominently posted up there. Um, okay, Parklet. So the Bryant Street Parklet, which is the building next to the E2 building, um, as many of you know and participated and gave us your thoughts on over the last year, we have been trying to figure out as a group what we can do, how we can transform that parklet so that it's a community asset and it's sort of valuable for a very, very long time. I want to be clear that right now it already is a community asset and it is very, very valuable to a lot of people who use it. So we're just trying to think through like what is the next version of this. So I want to make sure that you are hearing from us. We've taken in over 300 different responses in the last year of doing community engagement. And the board in the next couple of months are going to be hopefully making a pretty clear decision on what we're doing next with those community inputs. So you'll hear more from us soon on that. It is a super dynamic conversation at the board level. Okay, I'm going to talk volunteering really quickly. There's more to say about this, but we have recently created a new way to sort of express interest in volunteering. So we have this form. I'm putting it in the chat right now, and we have a lot of different volunteer opportunities there. So this volunteer form, this is the first time I'm sending it around to everyone. So if it's not perfect, you can blame me. I'll put my personal email in the chat. You can email me about it. But we have a general interest category. We have categories for recurring volunteers who are interested in doing things like the parklet cleanup, kids committee. We have Anyone who wants to be a board member can sort of submit their nomination right there. And I think it'll be a really great way for people to just sort of um, fill out the form, and then a board member will get in touch with you about that specific opportunity. So a lot of people have asked us like, how do I get involved? Most people email one of the board members or talks to one of the board members. Hopefully, this is a little bit more of a consolidated way to do this. I will be posting this on the website, and we'll be doing a lot more sort of communicating about this on our social media over the coming month and or month and a half. Like I said, if anyone wants to be a board member specifically, um, that that process sort of culminates in the June business meeting. So no real rush right now, but think about it. Please reach out to a board member and we can have a conversation about what that looks like exactly. I know Officer Salander is here, so I will let her if she's ready. I know I'm not sure if I don't want to put her on the spot, but Officer Salander, if you want to give us a quick safety update, feel free to do so if you're here. Yep. If you're talking, you're muted. If you're not talking, then we can give you a skip. Okay. Let's give Officer Cylinder a little skip, and then we'll actually go before we do parks. Tori, now's your time. So Tori is our park ranger here. Her office I actually toured recently is is the second floor of the farmhouse building at the farmhouse playground. If anyone has ever had questions about what that building is for, the second floor is her office. Apparently, Tori's office is like the envy of the park rangers. It's the best office.
For
Um,
sure.
and Tori, tell us a little bit about the Easter egg hunt. I'd love to hear how it went.
It went really well. So it was our fourth annual Easter egg hunt at Highland Park. This was on March 28th. Last year we had 376 people, and this year we had 426. So each year we're growing. We had over 3,400 eggs that we packed. We had both candy and toys, stickers, and eggs in each of them. And it went really well. We had ticket donations from the zoo, from Phipps, from the Carnegie Museum, and the Children's Museum too. So there were two golden egg winners, which was really cool. It was like over $500 worth of tickets for those two eggs combined. So it was really good. And the weather was nice. I wasn't able to be at last year's, but I know in previous years the weather's been kind of bad. So we got really lucky. But it went really well.
Awesome. Any other upcoming events from the Rangers to talk about?
So, last Saturday we had our first conservation crew. So, right along the reservoir, by that parking lot on Reservoir Drive, we did tree maintenance for our last two tree planting sites. So we inspected all of the caging, the tube, we gave new mulch on all of them, and we inspected the um, survival rates of all the trees. So we actually had all of them survive, and we just like leveled them with no concern, small concern, high concern. And then on May 9th, we have our next conservation crew. We're going to be doing another tree planting there. So it'll be in the same spot, and there'll be 20 more trees added. And then on June 6th, we're doing another conservation crew at the top of Dog Paw Trail to the left of the dog park. We'll be cutting down the invasive knotweed all along the trail because that area gets super overgrown. So yeah, I think that's about it for upcoming volunteer events.
Awesome. Tori, I know I just gave a plug for HPCC volunteer stuff, but if anyone wants to volunteer for your events, is there a link to sign up or anything that we can you can put in the chat for everyone to click on?
Yeah, for sure. I can put our Eventbrite link
Awesome.
in there. We have all of our events there. And then this year was the first year that we did our program guides. So this has all of our events for Highland Park and then also all the parks throughout the city as well.
Awesome.
Yep.
MC O'Neill has a very quick question for you. Do you consult Tree
Yeah.
Pittsburgh for any planting?
Yes, we get all of our trees from Tree Pittsburgh. So
Awesome.
we work really closely with them. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Before I will let Tina and Nancy both. Beth told me you guys have a 1 minute update for us on two things. But before that, I want to make sure Officer Selander, if she did DM and say that she has a video issue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Somehow my phone is on safe driving mode, although I am not in my vehicle. I've never
Good.
seen this before, but as long as you can hear me, that's all that matters. Um, yeah, so I have your crime stats. It seems like it was a great month in Highland Park. We had 21 reports, 8 were thefts, and that was it. You had no arrests, no ag assaults, none of that. So, I mean, overall, pretty good. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I see no questions for you.
We had a car theft on Portland Street within the last 5 days. Is that part of the stats?
So this is for last month. So
Okay.
it would be, yeah, it would be on these are March's stats.
Okay.
Craig, I hope it wasn't your car that got stolen.
Nope, not mine, down the street from me, but got no further details. Don't know if it was recovered or not, but it was between 12:15 and 1:15, and people were looking for doorbell camera footage. It didn't capture anything on mine, but I don't know any other details. That's why I was asking, but we'll get that next month.
Okay, understood. Okay, let's start. Go ahead, Officer Selander, if you want to.
No, I was just going to say, so primarily in Highland Park, that seems to be the majority of your crimes, especially during those hours you're speaking of, is, the older teenagers walking around trying door handles and the car thefts. But yeah, if your neighbor needs to follow up or anything like that, you guys have my contact info. I can put it in the chat again. And if they need an update on the report or anything like that, you can just reach out and I'll get you that information.
Awesome. Thank you, Officer Selander. Okay, I'm going to pass it over first to Tina. Tina, if you have a very quick update for us.
Just wanted to make sure that the council has the latest information on the deer management program 2025-26. So from the end of last year through the beginning of this year, I just posted in the chat the final report from the entire program throughout the city and the parks. In Highland Park, they called 15 deer, and our program in our park is archery only. And that's all I have for that, unless Tori has anything that she would like to add to that. And if not, then we can move on to Nancy.
No, but I think we're good on that end.
Thank you, Tori.
Thank you, Tina and Tori. Nancy, go ahead.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I have just a hopefully brief update on the community gardens on Stanton Avenue. For those of you who were not at the prior couple meetings, there's some issues there. About half the plots at this point are abandoned. Despite that, we've probably got a wait list of about 100 people who would really like to have a plot. We're really struggling with the management of that and who is responsible. It's currently under the auspices of the DPW, but they're pretty slow on the uptake, and don't really know that a plot's been abandoned for at least 2 years. That's when their lease is due and they don't pay and they don't follow up. So we're trying to streamline this a little bit and get people into the plots and get the plots maintained, because the longer they're abandoned, the harder they are to reclaim. I've been working with Kelsey Sheridan in Deb Gross's office for a few months now, and Deb Gross's office is very actively working on this. The current plan is to eventually get the community garden under the auspices of City Farms program and out of the DPW, and that's probably a much better group to manage it. We are also working on finding a leadership group. For the last few years, there's been a lead gardener, and that's not worked great. and we're trying to get 2 or 3 people who would, because it's a lot to fall on the shoulders of one person. And we're trying to get 2 or 3 people, and I may have identified a couple other people who are interested. So that's pretty much where we're at, unless there's any questions.
Awesome. We do have one question for you from Beth. Are all the community gardens across the city working toward moving departments or just ours?
That's a good question. They're they're called allotment gardens. They're all the city allotments, and not all the community gardens are city gardens, but I think there's 4 city gardens, and they will all be on the auspices of city farms.
Great. Thank you very much, Nancy. I know I'm personally interested to see how this evolves over the next few months. So thank you for the update.
Okay, I'll keep everyone updated.
Okay, that's the end of the HPCC updates. I'm gonna hand it over to Brad as he gets his screen share going. Brad, we're at 7:25, so maybe if we do 10 minutes and then a few minutes for Q&A, and then we can have time for Rebecca and her crew to talk to us about the cover reservoir.
Sure, I'll do it. Very, very quick summary since this is the second time tonight. We spent some time just listening to comments and making some changes actually to the design. We did some friendly reconnaissance around the neighborhoods with some of the immediate neighbors, and also completed the shadow study on the Parklet. So again, for if anyone that wasn't attending last month, the current owner of Smiling Banana Leaf, Patty Tengia, has purchased the property across the street adjacent to the Parklet, hopes to build 3 apartments on the back of the lower portion, including a top floor apartment for herself, and then renovate the existing Smiling Banana Leaf building. So they'll both still be restaurants. The intention is to have a restaurant at both locations. The design change here was to push the taller volume further away from Albury Way to reduce shadow on the park, and also have the back of the building closer in height to the houses behind the building. So the taller portion is more central. Everything else as presented last week, including our exceptions, are the same. One minor change, which is part of one of our previous exception variance requests, because it follows the same logic, is to actually not demolish any of the existing building to create the outdoor seating at the front on the second level. The idea now is to actually build out, if permitted, over top of the existing outdoor seating with a balcony. So this would leave the entire existing sidewall available for the mural or projection, while expanding the outdoor seating on the ground level and also the second floor. So for those of you who weren't attending last month, the idea is to do a larger Smiling Banana Leaf restaurant that will be 2 levels, with takeout and outdoors and indoor seating, with an ADA bathroom on the first floor, and then a smaller dining room on the second floor with both indoor and outdoor seating and an additional bathroom. This is the existing building, and the new, you can see in this image, the front of the building remains the same with the addition of the outdoor seating in the front. The rear builds 3 apartments on top of the lower level. We have some updated sun studies here where we looked at particularly the winter effect. So we had shown these summer effects in the past. It's always okay at 9, 12, and 4 p.m. The winter is when you have a lot more shadow because the sun's lower in the sky, and there's essentially no difference except for in the early morning in the winter. There will be more shadow in the park. At noon, it's about the same, and then at 4 p.m., the shadows actually extend beyond the parklet, that with no effect from the building. We also were addressing some comments from neighbors, which wanted to make sure the design appreciated the fact that there is the bakery next door. There is a living space on the second floor from the bakery owner. And so this design adjustment doesn't cut out any of the second floor wall, so that there's still separation between the second floor restaurant and that house, with the only seating out in front of that. This again would be the opportunity for some kind of public art mural or some other kind of art installation. I think that that would be something that the owner would like to work with the park committee and this group to facilitate, or perhaps a local artist is commissioned. And then the materials of the addition are meant to be mostly natural wood, a wood screen. So the idea is to blend it in with the natural features of the park. Yeah, so that's our update. I don't know if anyone, Jason, if you want to.
Yeah, we have a couple of comments and questions here. So, one, I think maybe Howard's is the right one to lead with. So, just so everyone knows, the building that we're talking about may house the business Smiling Banana Leaf, but it is not currently the building that Smiling Banana Leaf is in. So, this is the one that's across the street that was the Casa Brazil space. Patty now owns Smiling Banana Leaf, the restaurant, and this building. And so, I think I've heard her talk about like maybe the final vision isn't 100% definitive, but Smiling Banana Leaf might move in there and then a new restaurant into the other building or vice versa. So I think just Howard, that's a good clarification. Um, MC O'Neill's question came first. So what actions will be taken to minimize noise is the question. With he says right now the fan for Smiling Banana Leaf is loud. None of the restaurants that are operating or have operated on Bryant Street are so noisy relative to Banana Leaf.
I know Patty is actually making some minor interior adjustments to the existing building right now, including a takeout window on the front. The idea is to renovate the existing kitchen once they're able to have the new building up and running. There already is kitchen space in the building across the street here, which is starting to be utilized. It needs to go through some further renovations as part of this project, but that was the idea, is to start utilizing the kitchen in the other building to alleviate some of the production in the other space so that they can start updating some of that equipment that's rather old, including the fan.
Awesome. Yeah, so hopefully less noise, but unfortunately fewer free smells as well. I think on the picture you had where it was the bakery and the building, Howard had a question about the street seating. How close does that street seating come to the curb?
So this image here shows it a little better, where this gray block on the ground here is actually the existing condition. So this would not extend out any further than the existing ramp that goes up into the building. So essentially, it would stop at this line right here, which is the property line and the public right of way.
Yeah.
So there would be no impact to the sidewalk itself.
Awesome. David Anglero mentioned I believe it's the URA grants for facade improvement. If this link that I just put in there is the right link, where the applications for facade improvements are open. I had a brief conversation with Patty. I know she's really interested in facade improvements overall. So if it wasn't on your radar, there it is for you guys. Any other
That
questions
is great to hear.
for Brad? Well, we've got him. Awesome. And as everyone thinks about this, takes time to process it, please feel free to reach out to the HPCC. And with any comments, we'll probably get together as a board and also talk about this, since we're not just the community council, but also the owner of the parklet next door. So yeah, and Brad, remind me, you guys are going in front of the Planning Commission on May 7th, is that right?
I believe May 7th.
Okay,
So we'll send this updated presentation to Shoshana and zoning,
perfect.
and if approved, then we'll have to do a building permit application process after that.
Great. Sabrina has a couple comments here, but Sabrina, if you want to come off mute and ask about the windows, feel free. Oh, she can't come off mute. So she says she's curious about the windows, the lower ones that face into the parklet. But I don't know what she's curious about exactly. So maybe she can. Seems like a weird privacy issue. There you go.
I could explain that on the previous version of this, it was essentially all glass facing the park, so it's been reduced to less than 20% of that wall. And the idea is that there are balconies in front of those windows with privacy screens, and also the windows are recessed with blinds. They're also like a darker window. So I think there will be actually more of a privacy concern from people inside the space than people in the park being affected by those windows. We would imagine the blinds to be down anytime there would be the ability to see in the window, like anyone's house.
She says the last one. What about that small window below street level?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about also.
Oh, yeah, right there in the white space.
So right now that's where there is rhododendron and other plantings. There is no proposed use of that lower basement level in the current plan. There's a garage down there and storage to be used as of now. That window was an idea actually kind of from a previous discussion we had with Patty as to whether or not that space would be ever activated or utilized by the park. That's no longer being proposed, and we can actually just eliminate that from this drawing before we submit to the city, and that should take care of that question. That will most likely be planting along there anyway. So.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so Beth has a comment. 4 levels seems quite high for this side of the business district. Is that a must-have to fit all the units in? And just maybe some clarity on the actual variances that you'd be asking for to make that work.
Sure. So because of the significant amount of cost to renovate the building, the owner's desire is to be able to afford to do the renovation by providing 2 rental income units below an upper floor unit. And so that's the reason that it's 4 stories versus 3. It's actually a story lower than some of the other residential developments that have happened in Bryant Street over the past 5 to 10 years, which were approved. And it's also not on the street, so it's back pretty far, to the point actually that from the street you don't even necessarily see that height, only from the side street, and then from Euclid. I think the other thing to mention about the variances, there's already building being built in the required setback, so we should naturally be granted what's called a contextual setback, which is approved under administrator approval. It still requires going in front of the zoning board. There's also a maximum height permitted within 50 feet of a certain R2, R3 residential zone, where it's 3 or 4 stories allowed. Because this sits in the back of the property and the level along Albury Way is actually a story below, the argument is that it's actually not exceeding the number of story zoning requirement, because you're allowed to use the average height of the Bryant Street side versus the Albury Way side. The other variance is for the request to only provide 1 parking space versus 3 parking spaces when there's 3 units being built. And then the other reason that it's getting reviewed at the Zoning Board of Adjustments is just that it's because of its square footage, it requires a development activities meeting review, which is this, and then it will be presented again at a zoning hearing.
Awesome. Okay, so I have maybe just a lightning round, and then we have to move on to Rebecca. Beth asks a little bit about the parking. So, one, I think in a related fashion, the retaining wall off of the back of the property that goes into the alley, how high is the retaining wall there?
Well, nothing being proposed is new
Okay,
around
so
the
that's that
footprint of the
same.
building. So the back would remain exactly the same, with the exception of there being a screen being proposed to be put around the trash
Yep.
storage.
Okay. So then I guess because you sort of mentioned 1 parking spot would be proposed, then any additional parking needs would just be street parking. The tenants would use the street parking.
If they have a car.
Okay.
Mhm.
I will take Zach Rinker's question as the last one. So Abby has a question about affordable rent or affordable units proposed, understanding that you're the architect, not the owner. Do you know what Patty's thinking about affordable units here?
The most recent discussion is that there's no affordable units being proposed.
Okay. Howard just makes a comment that it's comparable or lower than the magistrate court. And then Zach asks a question about utilities, saying, are you reusing existing water and sewer service laterals? And is any fire service being added?
That's a great question. So it could be required. It's arguably less than 50% of the building, but it's also being built on top of an existing building. So I'd say that there's a 50% chance that sprinklers will need to be added. There is a significant cost to it. It can happen in one of 2 ways. One is which it gets tapped off the domestic line, and the other is that it would need to have a new tap in off of Bryant Street. The goal moving forward is to use all of the other existing utility connections coming into the site. There would just need to be new meters and sub meters added for water and electric.
Yeah, once you get an engineer on board, send them our way early. What's the schedule for this plan? Do you guys, is it like far off, or because I'm worried it'll trigger a planning module, which is a pretty long process.
Yeah, we have to on May 7th get approval for the bulk and the height, and then we'll have to go through a 4 to 6 week permit review process once we submit. But between May 7th, after May 7th, we need to do the full engineering design. So it's going to be a few months probably before it's fully submitted to zoning. So we can submit the engineering design for review.
Okay, yeah, that planning module process is like 6 months sometimes, so just keep that in mind. But
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome. And Brad, Zach is from Pittsburgh Water. That's why he's
Sure.
commenting in there. Okay, so that's the end there. I'll have to cut you off just because I know everyone else is also interested in Rebecca's project here. So anyone else who has any comments or questions, I just put the main hpccpgh@gmail.com email in the chat. Please send them over. More than 3 people look at that inbox, so your question will not be missed. Brad, thank you very much. Appreciate the continued updates here. And if you can stop sharing your screen, I will let Rebecca hop in. And Rebecca, if you have anything to share screen-wise, feel free to try that now and let me know if you run into
Looks
any.
like I need permissions.
Just
to
gave
share.
you a permission there.
Okay.
There you go.
So that is the right presentation. All right. Everyone can see the screen okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having Zach and I here today to provide you with an update on the slope stability project. We will try to get through this presentation quickly. We just wanted to start off with some updates about the other projects that are happening within the vicinity of Highland Park, recap a little bit about what we heard back on February 28th, and the slopes, provide a quick overview on the slope stability project. Then we'll get into the design update and answer questions, or take your questions and bring them back to our internal team so we can continue our discussion. So just first, a couple of updates. The Highland Reservoir pump station, we are working towards putting that into service. There has been a lot of cleanup happening around the site. Our operations crews began taking down the sound barrier walls that were surrounding those temporary pumps. And then the testing of the pump station is slowly but surely getting underway. We were starting with the portion of the pump station that feeds the Garfield district. So currently do not have a date for when we will put the pump station fully into service. Just doing a lot of the testing and a lot of the cleanup work to get it to that point. We do have the permits, and so we're just going through the steps as needed. The Serviceberry Trail, which runs through the portion of Highland Park that is parallel to Bunker Hill Road, essentially. We did just get the green light to move forward with putting a contract into place with the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy to handle and install those plantings. So I don't have a date just yet for when the plantings will actually be installed, but we will be working with the Parks Conservancy to make that happen. And then on May 2nd, we have organized a community cleanup in partnership with Allegheny Cleanways within Highland Park. This is more of an internal Pittsburgh Water employee event. So there will be a group of us coming to the neighborhood on May 2nd from about 10 to noon. We'll be meeting at Tazadoro. and then heading out around the neighborhood to pick up litter, clean up some areas of the park, clean up areas around our construction site, and try to do a nice tidying up of the area. So I think many of you have seen this before. These are just some of the guiding principles we've been talking about related to the slope stability project and what we try to follow for the other projects that we are responsible for that are located within the public realm. It is really important to us to be good stewards of the public spaces we all share, and we remain committed to the community and the community safety. And we really do value your input and try to incorporate that as best as we can into the projects we're responsible for, while still maintaining our responsibilities as a public utility. So the community engagement process, we had two very engaging public meetings associated with that. The first was on February 5th for the information session to provide just kind of a baseline understanding of the slope stability project. Then on February 28th, many of us met out at Tree Pittsburgh to participate in the design workshop. And we got a lot of great comments from the community. We are still going through those internally to determine how best to incorporate them and making decisions on what we can or cannot do. So all of that is currently in progress. We're here today on April 16th. I'm providing you with an update. And then, as we go through the community comments and get a little further along in design, we will be wanting to come back to share more information about the design and also continuing to engage and provide opportunities for input. So we heard a lot on February 28th. This is kind of a summary of the list of comments that we received. There was definitely interest in pedestrian safety and the condition of the sidewalks around the reservoir. So we will be taking a look at that to see how we can meet these objectives and meet these goals. The path and accessibility associated with it were also really top of mind for people. One thing I do want to say with the pathway going around the reservoir, and we will be talking about that later on in the presentation, that is essentially a maintenance path for the reservoir that we will provide public access to that, but it's not a full-blown trail. So it wouldn't meet the ADA accessibility. We wouldn't be able to provide bike access there. So so that pathway, that access path is not going to meet these goals of the communities. So I think we can continue that conversation. This is, obviously a project that, while it's happening on Pittsburgh Water's property, conversations have to also happen with other partners to try to figure out how we can make some of these other things happen.
And Rebecca, just to clarify, this is just the path literally around the reservoir, okay?
Correct. Yes. And so there will be opportunities for additional input. We are still going through the design. We have not selected materials yet for the retaining wall. The landscaping, we are committed to using the perennials and native plants, but there's still opportunities to provide input on the actual types of species. So things like the trail maintenance or trail surface, ongoing maintenance, the tree removal, and any reuse, those are all things that are still being decided, and input, is still welcome for those features. Signage, like, it's definitely something that we will need to think about. We're not far along enough in the design just yet where we have thought about it. But I think that's an opportunity where we can come together on to figure out what type of signage would be needed. Stormwater management, we will have the stormwater features around the reservoir. The areas around Heff's Valley and along Mellon Terrace, those currently they're not part of this project, and we don't currently have projects scoped out for those. So those we recognize that they are important, but they would need to be, a little bit more of a future conversation. The fence placement, there were some questions about whether it can be placed in closer proximity to the reservoir. And that is one thing that we are fairly set on, that the placement that we showed during the February 28th meeting is where the fence will remain. It pretty much runs along the top of the reservoir, and so we will still be able to provide access along the maintenance path. It's not going to be obstructing the sidewalks in any way. And so we have really done our best to try to meet the community halfway with where we have it located. We know that there will be construction concerns and a lot of questions about the impacts. And so right now we are focused on getting through the design and getting our submittals into the DEP. And so that the construction concerns are going to be just an ongoing part of this conversation as we work towards construction next year. But we will definitely do our best to try to answer any of those, answer your questions, and to manage the impacts as best as we can. The Highland 1 reservoir is definitely a future topic that we will be discussing at the utility level and perhaps even at the city level. I can't speak for them directly, but right now the open reservoir, it is not being used to provide drinking water, but it is still essential to the operations and distribution of drinking water. So we do still need that as part of our system at this time. But when we are ready to talk about that more cohesively and whether a similar stability project is necessary for that area, we will certainly provide the community with the necessary notification so that we can have an engaging discussion similar to what we're doing with this project. And we are definitely thinking about ongoing infrastructure management. We are putting a lot of thought into our projects. They're meant to last for a number of years. So these are the long-term planning, any type of management around these pertaining to the infrastructure. We can share that with you to the extent possible. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Zach, who will provide an update on the bald eagle study, which was something that was asked for during the information session.
Thanks, Rebecca. So we had our consultant go out. They had environmental scientists perform a bald eagle survey per U.S. Fish and Wildlife specifications. It includes a 660-foot radius around the reservoir, and no bald eagles or signs of nesting were observed. Do we have the map on the next slide, Rebecca? Yeah, so there's the limits of the survey. The yellow dots are like photo points. There's a whole photo log with directions of where the photos are looking at. So just, I mean, they walked around the entire site, the reservoir top and the perimeter, and just looked for signs of nesting and didn't see anything. So, I mean, that's the extent of the standards for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife protocols. But obviously, if we see any signs of that occurring during construction or as the project moves forward, we'll reevaluate. And we welcome any of the community members. If you notice anything, any bald eagles in trees or nesting or anything, obviously let us know as soon as possible.
And the report is available on the project website if anyone wants to take a look at it.
I was just going to make a joke. If you notice any bald eagles, also send it to us on social media. We'd love to see that. Thank you.
Just running through for anyone that wasn't at our first meeting, Highland 2 is a Class C1 dam based on its depth of water storage and the impact to downstream loss of life and property if there was a catastrophic failure, which requires full permitting, emergency action planning. upgrading it to safety standards to get that permit. Next slide. Existing conditions. Just there's some woods down below the area that are going to remain. You can see the fence that's up at the top of the reservoir in the blue line. And the new property line. Obviously, there's lots of knotweed and underbrush that needs to be cleared and is a problem. Not a great existing condition there. And again, it's very steep slopes here, prone to landslides. There have been slides here historically and recently. So there's more impetus to make these improvements. So we're using a combination of soil nails, a soil pile wall, which is like the big nails that go straight down. There's different reaches that combine those two technologies, along with just increasing the embankment weight with more fill. And the purpose of those different reaches is to kind of streamline construction and reduce the construction timeline, reducing impacts to the community and just getting it done faster, efficiently. And the main response is to just add more fill on top, and the weight of the dirt is what holds the water back essentially. And there's not enough dirt stable there right now. Next slide. So again, we're taking trees out, as most of you are aware. Everything along that structural fill embankment of the reservoir needs to come out in the dark green, and then everything outside of the area will remain. If you look aerially, like on Google Maps, you can kind of see the ring around the reservoir that is the trees that will come out. And then, and down below, we will be doing some maintenance and management of like dead and dying trees with city forestry. Next. More remediation notes. It's repeats from last time, just that trees to remain down below again. There's the shrub planting area, which we have opportunities to plant more aesthetically pleasing plants, not just grasses. And again, with the perennial planting area, the pink at the toe of the slope, where that's where the structural embankment ends, and it just becomes regular fill that we can do whatever we want with. And then on the embankments themselves, it's just the grass species. Again, we're using pollinators and native species, which the DP has an approved list of plants that are all native species. So we're sticking to that pretty much. But our environmental team is looking at the best way to introduce those and combine them. Next slide.
All right. So we do want to share some of the design updates that have occurred since our design workshop back on February 28th. After that meeting, this was really one of the first times where Pittsburgh Water and the zoo really sat down together. And I think that really the reality of the project started to just kind of become clear to the zoo, and they shared with us some of their concerns around the access path, particularly pertaining to some of the regulations they need to meet regarding the distance that needs to be maintained between people and animals that are contained within the zoo. So there are some changes to the access path. And changes that we want to talk about that are associated with the area directly behind the zoo. And then would like to provide some updates on the staging that for construction that we are working towards. So I will turn it over to Zach from here to talk through a little more specifically about those conversations and the changes that have been made.
So the zoo does have some, they're not exhibits, but they keep some animals behind there. They have like a probably 10-foot wide walking like sidewalk area, and then the slope goes up to the reservoir. And there's some birds back there, some smaller animals, but there are very strict rules about proximity to those features of public and a potential walking path that they would need to make I guess burdensome changes. They can't accommodate that access path back there with the animals being present. So we need a 15-foot offset, which puts us too close to our walls and soil nails to allow a path through that area. So there will be a fence And we'll go over that. I think we have a slide with the fence shown, Rebecca.
We do.
Okay. Yeah, so it'll cut off there at the building and not be accessible right behind the building. And we're having ongoing conversations with the zoo to finalize that and make sure they're on board with it. Next slide. Yeah, again, there's no way to provide access around like a full connectivity loop around the reservoir. It'll be in and out essentially. We're looking at an alternative connection down to Heth's Run instead of going down the hillside, just the trailhead location and where the path will go. A future path that potentially the city and community can coordinate efforts for. And Pittsburgh Water, obviously, on the portions of our property. And that requires conversation with the zoo and the city and engagement with everyone involved. So.
And if I could just add a little bit more too, we also started to realize that just the engineering needed to try to maintain that path was just going to be difficult to install. The slope is so steep that in order to get the plateau that would have been necessary for the pathway would have been really challenging from an engineering perspective. So this isn't all driven by the requirements of the zoo. It was definitely partially us to taking a closer look at the engineering that would have been needed to install the full access path around the reservoir.
So one of our major design, just talking about our design progress so far, there was a big redesign around the modeling we were using and the pile wall we're installing. We're using a finer tuned finite analysis model to reduce costs and get tighter design. The initial models couldn't get the factors of safety we needed. And so that is extending the wall pretty significantly, almost doubled. We don't know if there will be a visible wall. I say wall, but it's mostly underground. There's some interplay of like fill above it and how deep it is and how tall it needs to be. The ideal scenario will not have a visible wall above ground. It'll just be an underground structure. But if it does come above ground, there's opportunities to have aesthetic features on the face of it as you observe it from one wall place coming up behind the zoo. So that'll be a future conversation we have with you all. Okay, so here's we'll talk about the fence and some of the looping. So the yellow line was our intended path that cuts off right at the zoo education building now. So basically from the zoo education building, I guess to One Wild Place, there won't be any access or walking path. Unfortunately. So again, in and out back to that pond from the pump station side, basically. And then the red line is the proposed fence. There are some changes here. We haven't gotten a chance to update everything yet, but right where it comes to the zoo, it'll tie into the corner of the zoo's building and cut off that path there and then pick back up in the other corner of the zoo's building. And then the intent with the fence is to basically incorporate those sorrel nails. Those are the dark, it's 3 or 4 dark lines that wrap around, that over there, just to keep people off of there. It's kind of a safety hazard. They're pretty steep areas, steep slopes. There's lots of concrete blocks, and it's not a safe area for people to be on like the front of the reservoir where the slopes are flatter. So the fence is further down slope back there. But towards the front edge along Mellon Terrace and Mellon Street, it is up at the top where it is now. So it won't be right up against the sidewalk. There'll still be room to like wander up and walking your dogs and stuff. And then it'll come around and then some changes over here near the pump station where her cursor is. It'll continue up along the crest there. Yeah, and then come down and catch the access road. So there won't be any fence. You'll still be able to get on that maintenance path that we have. There won't be a fence cutting it off anywhere. Our vehicles can get through. The pump station itself will have its own fence around, independent of itself. And then, do we have a stormwater slide later on? I think with a
No,
visual. Okay,
this is
I'll
the
talk.
only
I'll talk about
visual.
the ponds then too. So the top pond to the north is our main stormwater facility. It's controlling most of the runoff to keep the flows below the pre-existing conditions down the Hep's Run. And then on the east and south, the more northern one is no longer being proposed. The slopes didn't work with the drainage system, so everything's being diverted to that lower pond at the corner of Mellon Street and Mellon Terrace. So that will hopefully be a feature of the intersection community and have some nice plantings. And it's not going to be like a wet pond. It's going to, I mean, if you're all familiar with how rain gardens look in the city, so some opportunities for aesthetic choices there as well. What else are we going to talk about here? Trail access, trailhead, right there. It's being proposed behind the pump station. That squiggly line down is kind of like the future hope for an actual trail for hiking and public use, pedestrians. But not part of this plan as of yet, but the trailheads themselves on our property are a part of the project and the final restoration plans. And then the fence style is going to match the ornamental fence that's out there now. There's a small picture of it there. It's that black with the little nubs on top. I don't know what those are called, but just a basic black ornamental fence. Nothing too fancy, but it's also not. I mean, I like how it looks. I don't know how you'll feel.
Great.
So again, we talked about staging a little earlier, but there is a staging area up at the front of the pump station where that meadow is to be planted at some point. There's nowhere behind the zoo that we can use. We're using the area to the north where that large pond is already for staging. How the phasing is set up and how construction will go, we need that front area to do the first phase. If we staged off-site, there'd be a massive increase in the truck traffic coming up the roads and the damage to the roads over the course of a year and a half. Construction would be immense, and we don't want to do that. So the alternative is to delay the meadow restoration and use that for staging, and then we'll finish the meadow off when this project's complete. Next. Oh, is that the end?
And so at this point, we did want to open it up for questions or comments. We do have a slide after this that goes through the project schedule, so we could finish that bit of the conversation, then come back to questions if you all prefer.
Yeah, Rebecca, let's do that.
Okay. All right. Zach, do you want to walk through this?
Yeah, sure. So here we are in April. We're presenting this to you all. We were intending to have 90% before this meeting to talk about more of it, but because of those finite element analysis studies for the geotechnical work that got pushed back to the end of this month. So we will have more updates for your next meeting, hopefully. End of June, we'll have 100% design to submit the DEP. And then it's a year of DEP approval. And in spring of 2028, we'll start construction. And that'll go on for over a year and a half into 2029.
Awesome. Well, we've been getting a few questions and comments through the chat, so I'll try to synthesize some of them. Some of them I think you already answered a little bit of, and a couple of them are a little tangential. So John, first, he said, in a previous discussion, there was a point noted about the continuous light that is being emitted from the new pump station. And has there been any consideration or work toward attempting to limit light emissions or pollution from that building? It doesn't seem like any adjustments have been made at this point.
Yeah, I think we still need to look at that. And so we'll bring that back to the project team to see how lighting can be how the lighting can be better better shaded or shielded from the community.
Awesome. Well, MC O'Neill had a point about contacting Audubon of Western PA for the plants, but Zach, I think you said that DEP only uses native plants, so I think that's answered there.
I think there's opportunity. There's those two zones, the perennial zone at the edge or on the exterior. There's opportunity for us to look at that. So we'll definitely be incorporating some of that
Awesome.
into that zone. But
If you'll allow it, Abby has a tangent here too. She noticed a stream below the old treatment plant, and it appears to have some design failure and has tarping coming up from the stream bed. So she just FYI, if you guys are tracking that problem out near the old treatment plant.
Was that the area called the Babbling Brook?
I don't know.
this is
Yes,
the
that's
microfiltration
the
thing, right?
off the Babbling Brook Trail.
Okay.
That's the part when we did that hike, we had stopped
Yeah.
there and talked as well. Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. Aaron Birdie says when they did a hike on the One Water Trail on March 21st, they did see some bald eagles, I assume, circling over Highland 2. So maybe no nests, but maybe we get them as visitors every once in a while.
I've seen them there as well, so they're definitely around.
David Anglero wants to just give you some kudos, says the meeting at Tree Pittsburgh was really informative, really interactive, and would welcome more of those types of interactions as things develop. And MC O'Neill had a question about what seems like is answered, the rain gardens. So I think that's it. And Howard has his hand up, so I will let Howard go off mute.
I wanted to ask about the rain garden, and I think it's far enough away, but I just wanted to check about our Highland Park community sign, which is on that spot. It's marked. So
Is that north one?
Yeah, that one right there. So
Yeah, so that rain garden is it's not no longer proposed, so the sign won't be impacted by anything there.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm really glad that the sign is outside of your slope remediation zone. So, but if there's anything that concerns that sign, please, reach out.
Understood.
If it needs to be relocated or changed in any way, we're happy to accommodate. And is it correct that who owns that land right there? Is that owned by water or the city or the park?
I don't know about that corner. I think
really want
it's
to
the
ask this
city.
question. Just let us know if the sign is in the way.
Yeah,
And
we
we
will.
can coordinate with you on that for sure.
We understand how much it means to you all, and a lot of thought was put into it.
Thank you. Yeah, we replaced the sign.
Yeah. I'll add that it means a lot to Howard personally.
Yes.
Howard was in charge of that project, and it caused him a lot of stress.
The sign master.
Yes. Okay. I think that's it for you guys. Of course, if you could share PDFs of this, it'll be great. We'll have a recording on our website. But yeah, I think you guys can stop sharing. That's it from you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
both for
much.
coming. We really appreciate you continuing to give us updates here. For everyone else, that is the end of our agenda. We're already past time, so I think for everyone's sake, I'll end the meeting here. If anyone has anything they want to bring up or talk to HPCC about, please contact this email I'm putting right here. And I'll do one more plug for anyone who is interested in getting more involved with HPCC. Here is our new volunteer form. Please fill it out, and a board member will be in touch. And we will see you all hopefully on May 21st at 7 p.m. at the Parklet. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
And I just responded to a question that I can
Yeah.
extend that form. No problem.
Thank you, Rebecca.
All right. Thanks much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.